Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hey everybody, it's Melissa and welcome back to Raising Confident Girls. Today I want to talk about a moment that happens in a lot of homes, and it can catch parents off guard. I know it does for me anyway, because on the surface, it looks like your daughter is reacting way bigger than the situation. Maybe it's something small, a seat in the classroom that she's talking about at home, a comment that was misunderstood, a sibling saying something that felt unfair, or something that seems tiny to you, like a tone of voice, or where she's sitting, or a joke that didn't land the way she thought it would. And suddenly the reaction feels huge. Tears, anger, shutting down, or a reaction makes you think, how did this turn into such a big deal? And a lot of parents feel confused in these moments because part of you wants to comfort her, but another part is thinking this feels bigger than the situation. And if you've had one of these moments recently, you might have found yourself wondering, is she being dramatic? Is she too sensitive? Am I supposed to comfort this or help her toughen up? So today I want to unpack something really important. Why small things can feel enormous to girls sometimes, and how you can respond in a way that helps her regulate instead of escalating the moment even further. And before we get any further, I just want to remind you that the biggest compliment ever is to share this podcast or the show in general to a parent or caregiver that you think who would appreciate this, who could take away something they could use with their daughters or the girls in their life, because that is the goal of this podcast. So when girls react strongly to something that seems small, it's rarely about the moment itself. It's about what the moment touches emotionally. So I think back about a time when I was in elementary school, and I learned, I think it was late elementary school, how to play the clarinet. And we got to try an instrument. And I was really excited. I practiced at home and I thought maybe this will be my thing. And when I got to school, we had certain times that we would practice with the music teacher and we would get into small groups. And I remember that I was in a small group with some of the popular girls and I compared myself to them in social settings. And so the music teacher or the helper, whoever thought that we were going to practice a certain part that the woodwinds did together, the clarinets did together, and to try and synchronize it and all these things. And very quickly, I learned that I was playing a little bit slower than the other girls. And it was really frustrating for me. And to me, I felt like in my mind, looking back, I know that it was just me feeling that inner chaos and comparison and wanting to do it right and all these things. And I just wanted to belong so badly somewhere that when they played faster than me and I couldn't keep up or I messed up, I exploded in the group and I was like, they're going so fast, I can't even do it. And I like mocked, blah, 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 whatever the sound was, not with my mouth, but like with the instrument. And I remember all the girls, I remember this vividly because it's one of those moments that was small, but it felt big to me. So I mocked how they were playing. And then I remember all of those girls just stopping and looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And in that moment, it wasn't even about the song. It wasn't about if they played faster than me or better than me. It was, I wanted to belong in that setting. I was trying to face my fears by even being in a group with them. And I just wanted to fit in some way or feel accepted by them. And my reaction was bigger than the moment, because it could have just been the teacher saying, just speed up a little bit, Melissa, and here's how you do it. But the way that I reacted was that they were doing something wrong, and I just was having big feelings because I felt a lack. I felt like I wasn't belonging in that moment. And so it can a lot of times be that girls are incredibly aware, because I know they are in all of my experience and being a girl myself, of things like belonging and fairness and tone, social dynamics, whether someone is upset with them, whether they're being included. So something that looks small from the outside, like my clarinet small group, can feel much bigger internally. It could be even a seat change that might not just be a seat change. It might feel like, did my friend not want to sit with me? So this wouldn't be like assigned seats. This would be maybe if they get to sit somewhere and your daughter or the girl in your life expected her friend to sit by her and she didn't. And it really isn't a huge deal if someone sits somewhere different, but she felt like it was because she felt rejected in that moment, or she felt a questioning. Why didn't she want to sit with me? Or did she not want to sit with me? A comment might not just be a comment. It might land like, are people making fun of me? And when emotions have already been building throughout the day, school stress, friendship questions, expectations, comparison, sometimes a small moment is simply where everything spills out. And, I gave my clarinet example, and it really wasn't about the clarinet. It was just me feeling all those things. I was feeling all those stresses, and I didn't know how to talk about it, or I didn't know how to have support with it besides talking to my mom about it. I needed more support. And so this is another scene that could be happening, is when your daughter comes home from school, you can tell that something's off. You ask how her day was. We've talked about this one before. She says, fine. And then you pause and ask her again, did something happen? Because you sense something. And suddenly she starts crying. Maybe it's about something that happened in class. Maybe someone said something she didn't understand. And this would happen, I saw a lot of times in school, an inside joke or something someone was talking about and they didn't have any context for it. Maybe a friend sat somewhere else or chose a different partner or didn't play with them like they usually do at recess. Or even in passing periods, if they're older, maybe when they're switching classes, they normally walk with a certain friend and she didn't show up this time. And part of you is trying to understand what happened. But another part of you is thinking, this seems really big for what actually happened. And in those moments, parents often feel unsure how to respond. Do I comfort her? Does she want a hug? Do I help her see it differently? Like, give her scenarios of what the other girls might be feeling in that situation? Do I tell her it's not that big of a deal? This is where understanding what's happening internally really helps. When girls have big reactions, parents usually move into one of two responses. We either minimize it, it's not a big deal, it'll be okay, or we move quickly into problem solving. Just ignore it. Next time, say this. And both of these responses come from good intentions. So I don't think any of us say these things to hurt our daughters or the girls in our life. But we want our daughters to be resilient. We want them to be confident. But when emotions are high, the brain isn't ready for solutions yet. When the nervous system is activated, what a girl needs first is that emotional regulation. Not explanation, not perspective, regulation. Before we talk about specific responses, there's something really important to understand. When a girl is having a big reaction to something that seems small, her nervous system is already activated, which means the moment you're stepping into isn't logical. It's all emotional. And when emotions are high, our instinct as parents is to move in quickly. We want to calm it down. We want to explain. We want to fix the situation. But the truth is, the faster we move into solutions, the more alone a girl can feel in that moment. So the goal isn't to shrink the feeling. The goal is to help her move through it safely. And there are 3 responses that make a huge difference here. The first one is regulate the moment before you interpret the moment. So when a girl is crying, yelling, or overwhelmed, parents often try to figure out the story first. What happened? Why are you so upset? What did she say? But when a nervous system is activated, questions can feel like pressure. So the first step isn't understanding, it's regulation. This might look like slowing your voice, sitting next to her instead of standing over her, or kneeling beside her instead of standing over her. Letting the moment breathe before jumping in. And I know for me, I get this panic feeling inside and I have to regulate myself. I'm like, okay, just take a beat and really just make it calm before I jump in and solve anything. And sometimes it sounds like very simple language. For younger girls, you might say, hey, that felt really big, didn't it? You're safe. We'll figure it out. Or even just come sit with me for a second. And at this age, and typically we're talking ages 6 to 9. And again, like anytime I say age groupings, it just depends on the girl. At this age, though, your calm nervous system becomes the regulation she doesn't have yet. As they get a little bit older in that tween age, 10 to 13, it might sound more like, that really caught you off guard. Or I can see why that felt upsetting. Tweens are incredibly sensitive to tone, fairness, and belonging. So the moment they feel dismissed, the reaction usually grows. And that's why I think in that clarinet moment for me, because I was in that tween age, the other girls just kind of stared at me and I felt even worse. Like I felt like ashamed that I shouldn't have felt like that, or I felt like even more unsure and more emotional. So when they feel dismissed like that, the reaction usually grows. For teens, regulation often looks quieter. You might say, I can see that something's a little off or something hit differently for you. We don't have to figure this out right now. Because teens often calm down faster when they feel they still have emotional space. What tends to make these moments worse is jumping straight to logic. It's not that big of a deal. You're overreacting. Just ignore it. Oh, she'll be fine tomorrow. These responses come from a good place. I mean, I've said them too, but they can also make a girl feel like the emotion itself is the problem. And when someone feels judged for their feeling, the feeling usually gets louder. The second thing you can do is validate the feeling without confirming the story. This is one of the most helpful skills that parents can learn because validation doesn't mean you agree with your daughter's interpretation of the situation. Because sometimes when they start telling you something, you can try to kind of talk them out of why they shouldn't feel that way accidentally, or maybe on purpose. You're like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem, what about this? Or what about that? And they don't need that in that moment. It means that you acknowledge the emotion first. For example, a girl might say, she did that on purpose. I know that she moved her chair on the other side of the table because she didn't want to sit next to me. And you don't have to confirm that, because the first reaction might be, oh, honey, I'm sure that she didn't do it on purpose. I'm sure that she, and then that's when it starts to feel like invalidation for them. But you can, you don't have to agree, but you can validate the impact. I can see that that could really hurt your feelings. Or I'm sure that surprised you. Or I can see why that would feel so upsetting. This helps her nervous system settle enough to start thinking again. And once that happens, perspective becomes possible. For younger girls, that might sound like, that felt unfair. That surprised you. For tweens, it might sound like, I can see why that would bother you. That would feel uncomfortable. And for teens, it's more, that landed in a way you didn't expect, or that happened in a way you didn't expect, or I can see you're trying to make sense of that. Validating creates emotional safety, and emotional safety makes perspective possible later. So again, what you're saying is just something factual. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to agree with how they're feeling, but just validating like why you can see that that would upset her helps tremendously. The third way is to help her zoom out, but the timing matters. So once her emotions have calmed down, this wouldn't be your first step. This is when perspective can be helpful. And sometimes it's an hour later, sometimes it's 2 hours later, it just depends on the situation and your daughter. So once emotions have come down, the timing is what matters the most. If you try to zoom out while she's still flooded and having all these big emotions, it will feel dismissive. Once she's calm, you might say, I wonder if there could be another explanation. Or sometimes people say things that come out differently than how they meant it to be. Or let's think about a few possibilities of what this could be. This helps her brain move from an emotional interpretation back to flexible thinking. So for younger girls, zooming out might look like, maybe she didn't realize how that sounded. And again, it's not that you're taking that other person's side. It's just you may be even giving an example of when you've said something that came out the wrong way. For tweens, it could be sometimes people say things without thinking about how other people will take it. For teens, sometimes we fill in the story when we don't have the whole picture. So again, you're not making excuses for that other person, but you're opening her eyes to maybe another possibility. This is how girls slowly learn emotional resilience, not by eliminating hurt feelings, but by learning that feelings can shift as new information comes in. The fourth thing you can do is resist the urge to fix everything. And this is the hardest part. When your daughter is hurting, your instinct might be to solve the problem, because I know that's what mine usually is. You want to give advice. You want to make sure it doesn't happen again. But emotional strength grows when girls are allowed to experience feelings and move through them with support. There are going to be times when someone does say something mean, and maybe they did mean it. Or they say something and your daughter takes it a different way than that person intended, or whatever the case would be. Sometimes the most important and powerful thing you can say is, that was hard. I'm really glad you told me. Thank you for trusting me to tell me that. You handled that better than you think. This builds internal confidence, not just external solutions. And so when girls learn that big feelings can move through safely, something really important happens. They stop seeing emotions as something that has to be avoided or shut down. They start seeing them as something they can handle. And that's a huge part of confidence. And one of my favorite things to tell girls is that feelings are visitors. They're all valid. They all deserve a place, and you decide how long they stay. So a visitor comes and visits for a little. You feel the feeling, work through it, and then they move on. And it doesn't mean they're never going to feel that feeling again, but instead of replaying it, you're allowing her to regulate and then zoom out and think of, that maybe they can just feel it, and you can talk through solutions once they are feeling more in control and calm. Confidence isn't raising a girl who never gets overwhelmed. That's impossible. We're all going to have that. And sometimes it can feel like we're trying to keep our kids in a bubble. But I think that raising a girl who knows that when she does feel overwhelmed, she can move through it is one of the most powerful things we can do for the girls in our life. And moments like the ones we talked about today, the tears over something small, the reaction that feels bigger than the situation, those are actually the practice ground for that skill. Not because the moment itself is important, but because what she learns inside the moment is. So the next time something small turns into a big reaction, try to pause before deciding what the moment means. Instead of asking, why is she reacting like this? Try asking, what is she learning how to handle right now? Because emotional strength isn't built in calm moments. It's built in the messy ones. And it doesn't mean that every messy moment or every emotional feeling is going to be easy to work through. But the way you show up in those moments, being steady, patient, curious, not perfect, because we're all going to mess up, is exactly what helps her grow into someone who can handle big feelings with confidence. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.